Hello friends, and welcome to another episode of the Urban Homesteading channel with Professor DIY. If today is the first time you're visiting with us, we want to extend to you a very warm welcome. If you're a subscriber or we have been here before, welcome back. We appreciate you visiting with us again. If today is your birthday, we want to wish you a very happy birthday. Well friends, so today we're going to build this nice table. What is it, an end table?
Yeah, it's just an outdoor table.
For the outside, and we might build more. We actually like how it turned out, right?
Yep.
And we designed it to be only with straight cuts. There is nothing really very complex on this. You can build this with a handsaw if that's all you have. Again, we did use our tools because we have them, but they are not required for this project, right?
Right.
And also we have some aesthetic elements like these screws here that are visible. You can build it much cheaper if you don't use those, because those are kind of expensive. They're lug bolts, right? No, lug nuts instead of bolts. Yeah, lug screws.
Yeah, but we did need them to be rather long, and so some types of screws that you might use wouldn't be long enough to go through our material.
Right, but you can use decking screws, for example, that are the same length and they're much cheaper than this. But if you wanted to build it cheaper also, you can use a paver. Mm-hmm. We opted to go with something different, but the paver will also work very well. And also, if you want to make it darker, one of the easiest way to make it darker is to put a little bit of clear coat on it.
Okay.
And this will make this whole surface darker and also protect it more, because this is kind of porous, you know. I don't know if that's something you want to do or not. But it is the right height, and what did we say was 22, 23?
Well, it's 23 inches with the top on.
Right, which is the perfect dimension, really, right?
Yeah, looks.
Now, a couple of things. The dimension of your top will determine all the other dimensions, right?
Right.
Ours is 24 by 24, and we have about an inch overhang.
Inch and a half.
An inch and a half overhang. So this is what determines our overall dimensions, right? Mm-hmm. So first you need to find and buy the top you like, and then you decide all the other dimensions.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. So if you want to spend some time with us, we're going to show you in every detail how to do this. We're going to give you some tips and tricks on how to build it yourself an easy way. This, even without power tools, is an easy afternoon build, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
And if you want to make two of them, if you make all your cuts at the same time, it will save you a lot of time. Definitely our little jig was invaluable.
Very much so.
It helped us, and it really looked very nice. We're very pleased with it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be built using a handsaw like this and a home drill like this. This is Black & Decker. Now you're going to see us use power tools today because we want to finish, and we have them, so why not use them? But they are not necessary. All your cuts are straight cuts, right? All of them are 90-degree cuts. There is nothing, not even a bevel. Very straightforward. So if you have those two tools, you can actually do this project. So we decided we would like it a little less chunky than a 3.5 by 3.5. So we're going to transform this 3.5 posts to 3. We have set our table so we do not have enough blade to cut it in one pass. So we have to do it in 2 passes per side. So it will take us 4 passes per board. So we're going to do it a total of 16 cuts. And you're going to have to watch all of them. No, I'm joking.
But the great thing is, you can set, on this particular cut, you can set your blade to the distance you want, and you don't have to move it again. You just run each board through.
Right. But that will take a little bit of time, so we're going to maybe show you once, but then it is the same thing over and over.
And fast forward.
No.
It'll be done.
Yeah.
We're going to do it in fast reverse.
Magic cuts.
So that's a pretty good cut, actually.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to do it.
Yeah. I mean, even though you can kind of see a little bit of the blade mark, it's actually quite smooth.
And again, we could have the blade a little lower, and if we do, it will be a little easier on the saw, by the way, right? Because now it cuts this much at one pass.
Right.
So the second pass is easier, but it is
Okay.
whichever way you like it, right? There is no right and wrong here. Now, to find which way you're going to cut it is easy, because here, as you see, we have nothing to cut, right?
Right. So that's what our first cut was. So
So
now
it
we're
has to
turning
be this
that.
way, right?
Okay.
Ready?
And do you want to talk about how important it is to make sure you flip the board the correct way?
Right. If you don't flip the board, you're going to make two small cuts on two different sides.
Right.
That would not be a good.
So what we're talking about is when the board comes through like this, then and so we have our cut on this side. Then if you want to demonstrate, we want to make sure we flip it that way so that when the blade comes through, it's on the same exact spot.
And now you can see the difference between the two boards.
Yep,
So is that what we like?
Yes,
I think so.
I like it.
All right. So
And
we're
I
going.
like these spare parts too.
Okay, yeah.
So we're going to do the rest of them off camera, because again, it's the same process.
And
We're
it'll
going to repeat
be,
it. I'm sorry.
and it'll be done.
You see us resizing a 4x4 into a 3x3, and this you cannot do unless you're very skilled. Let's say I cannot do. Some people can do it using a handsaw. I just cannot do that. So if you do not have the tools that we showed you today, just buy the right dimension lumber, which is a 3x3. But if you buy bigger lumber, you can always make it smaller. If you buy smaller lumber, there is not much you can do to make it bigger, right? Of course, if you want to make something bigger, there is always some rope, some twine, some tape. Duct tape works great. This is Gorilla Tape, and your good old glue, right? So give it a try. Maybe it will work for you. It doesn't really work for me very well, but maybe it will work for you. Again, when we are doing it, we're going to tell you it is not a necessary step. You can use a 4x4 as it is. We just like the look of it a little smaller, right? A little less chunky. So again, I've seen channels that only use hand tools anyway. I'm just not that skilled with hand tools to make a long grip cut and make it look as good as my table saw does. Working glitter, right?
Yes.
And here we are with our 4 legs and some extra boards that we're going to find something to do, right? Always
Absolutely.
keep your scrap. So the next step is we're going to prep this, and we are going to move on to cutting the skirt. Is that what you call it?
Yep.
All right. So one good use for a compressor, which you can hear in the background, is using it to clean your tools after you finish. Something we have not done consistently, or I have not done consistently, but it's a good practice, a good thing to get in the habit of doing.
Yep, definitely is easier than sweeping or vacuuming. So we're creating, we're using story sticks to determine how far apart and how far away from the edge of the tabletop we want our legs to be. So this is 1.5 inches, and we're going to put it right up at the edge here of the tabletop. And we're going to move our leg there to square it up. And we're also going to put it here, move it back a little bit so that it's at the edge of the tabletop. And so it's a little twisted. Okay, and do it again. So this is going to be our story stick, not just for placement, but also for assembly when we're ready to put them together.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have some braces that we're making out of these 2x3s. And skirts, braces,
Totally
arms,
different.
tentacles, that we're going to use in between the legs. So we put it here, and we want it to be centered, and we needed to find something that will keep us on center. So we have another little story stick here that we found that will keep us at the right distance from the edge of the leg on both sides. So we know it's centered now, and we're going to make a template for where to put our screw holes. And so we found this template material, otherwise known as a scrap piece of cardboard, that is the right width for us to be able to make that template.
Okay.
So now that we have 2 of the legs in place and we've used our story stick to make the proper dimensions away from the edge of the tabletop, now we're going to use another story stick to tell us how far apart these are so that we can cut our pieces. And there you go.
And this is our last support. Again, we use a story stick to cut them all in the same length without measuring, which makes it both faster and more consistent, right? Because again, if they're all the same, if they're all an eighth off, that's okay, right?
Then they're all off.
They're
the
all
same.
off an eighth.
Right.
Especially in a build like that, because this is a perfect square, right?
Right.
So if everything is the same dimension, that's all we care.
Right.
And you won't see if it is an eighth off. It will be impossible to detect. Okay. So now we're going to work on making our little jig for the screw. So now we're just working in building our little jig that will allow us to be consistent with our lug nuts, right?
And so you can see we've got that small piece of cardboard. We've got a scrap piece of the 1x3 that we're using for our skirting. And then we're using that same piece that we used as the storyboard for spacing to make sure that this piece is lined up. And then we can make the marks where the screws will go, correct?
We have the pencil, yes. If you want to make a mark on the bottom of this. Using simple jigs like this make the work go much faster, more accurately, and makes it almost pleasant to work with very minute details. So here now we're going to, this is the area that we need to put the screws on, right? And that is centimeters. That will confuse our viewers. So let's go to inches, right? The time you take making a jig is returned to you by expediting the whole process. And that is a 2x3, which means it's a 2.5.
Right.
So we need to make some marks, right? So 1, is that a half mark?
That's a half.
Another half,
Half.
right?
Yep.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. So on one side we'll make 1 and 3, and in the other 2 and 4. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right. And this is our top, so I'm going to put an arrow up. We don't want to go that direction, right? And that way we're going to make sure that our bolts will not hit each other. And that will also be on the post, right? That's why we make this outline. So we're making sure it is in our board and they're not hitting each other. All right.
Just using a punch here to make sure that we've got the middle alignment, because when we made the original marks with the pencil, we weren't quite on center of our template here.
We don't necessarily have to be that exact, but why not, right?
We want it to be, so
Right.
there we go.
Okay, excellent. And this is a little bit of overkill, but this is the size of
Oh my goodness.
lug nuts we bought. Well, it's going through the 3.
Lug nuts.
And initially we said it would be 3.5, so this is a little longer than we needed now, but it's going into this, so this table never comes apart. I mean, it's like,
Well, it'll be 3 inches out.
Right.
So it'll be like so, about 3 inches in
Okay.
each piece.
and when you buy them, you want it this way, because if it was threaded all the way in, then it's going to create a gap in the join, right?
If the what is?
If the threads are all the way to the
okay.
top, it's going to create a gap.
So the threads only come to here.
Right.
And the rest is just a smooth shaft.
Right.
And so if you had more threads up here, it would create a gap between this board and the other one that
Right.
you're trying to attach.
And you have seen happening with
Okay.
us, and then you have to take the screw off and on and
Right.
off and on.
Right.
This avoids this. This is
Okay.
just a little bit, a little tip.
And you can use different
It's a little
types
tick.
of fasteners for this project. This seemed to fit what our needs the best that we could find.
Or if you don't want to use fasteners, you can use dowels instead of those, right?
And the heads are flat, and it's got what, a hex type.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay.
All right.
All right, so we know that we're going to need to alternate, which is why we've numbered these, the template with the holes where the bolts are going to go, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We're going to put on one face of the leg, we're going to put 1 and 3 or 2 and 4. And we do need them to alternate on either face of the same leg. So we're going to go through and mark every face that shows the same. We're going to have 1s and 3s. And then on the other side of the faces that are the same that you can visualize from this side will be 2s and 4s on both of these sides.
So on the top of the board, just write 1 or 2, depending on what pattern we need to do on each side.
So this is 1. And this is 2.
And also make an arrow in the corner that is the outside corner, so we know how to orient them when we assemble.
We know that because they're rounded.
Okay.
They're the only one with a round.
So this is 1, and this face
That could be
also
1.
will be 1. And then this one, the opposite will be 2 over here. And so on.
Okay. Here's the chaos when you move all your pieces, so it's very important to have them marked.
Right. And now what we're going to do, we're going to align them all the same, so we're going to do all the 1s first. So we need to turn them all to the 1 position.
Taking your time here to arrange the boards the correct way and mark them correctly is going to pay great dividends later down the road when everything comes together perfectly.
Excellent, right? And now we're going to use our template and we're going to start. May the games begin. So we're going on and punching the areas we want to drill in all the boards. So we're going to do that a few times. And we're doing this for expediency.
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 These all marked really well. Maybe we can redo that one just to be sure.
And again, you see the value now of the little jig, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we don't need it to be a very robust jig because we're only going to use it one time, this time, right?
If you were mass producing, you'd want to.
Right, you probably want to do MDF or something like that.
A little bit. Yep. Okay.
And that gets hot as you use it, by the way.
Indeed, it does. Much
Not
li-
hot glue hot, but hot.
No, but it gets metal hot. And metal hot is hot too.
Yep. And now we're going to turn them, mark the other orientation, the 2 and 4, and we're going to repeat the process, so we're not going to show it to you, of course. Riveting cinematography here, folks.
Right. So here, now that we've drilled all the holes, you can see how this number 1 is staggered against the number 2.
And you can see also how the same sides are going to be all next to each other.
Right. And so when the bolts go in, they'll go here, and then here, and you'll see them staggered that way.
All right, and now we're going to start assembly. So we are set up and with our holes, by pilot holes already drilled, our super duper long bolts ready,
Except it's in reverse.
big screw in forward,
Well, it was in reverse, so we can take our test one out.
right.
Am I waving?
It will probably move a little bit until it catches, that's okay. Second one?
Reset it a little bit.
Well, we haven't done the second one yet, so don't reset everything again.
Well,
She's
I want to
saying
make sure
to make
that
sure.
that's correct.
It might be
Well,
twisted a little
that
bit.
cannot be moved anymore.
I think it locked a little bit, but not as bad as the other one. This one looks very even.
So we're good.
We're good.
So to show you a little bit, we have put the clamp there so we can press against. That makes our assembly a little easier. We're going to assemble the other part the same way, and then we're going to put the two parts together to make the frame. Okay? We do have to worry about having the camera on when we're talking, however.
Okay.
So we mark our distance there. So we're going to make sure we're consistent distance between the top and the bottom
Right. And so
members.
when the board is up here being bolted into place, this will support this to make sure it's in the correct spot.
Correct.
So as you can see, we have a clamp here that's holding this in place to help hold it.
In our very last connection, we had a split as you see here, so we had to make another piece, but that is all part of the fun of DIY.
Because it has a tendency to lift up, right?
Right. So we had our storyboard that held it vertically, and then this helped hold it in place. Ooh.
Well, this is an optional step. This is upside down right now. This brace is not really needed. It is very sturdy without it, but we kind of like the look a little better this way, right?
Okay.
So you can omit it if you don't like it.
Okay. And so what we did was measure this, mark a point on center, and then we've got our cross brace centered with there, and we've got the clamps to help hold it in place, so then we can drill the holes and then put in the new bolts. Okay.
And we're going to use the same little jig we used before to make the holes.
Right there.
We are going to make a little bit of a homemade wood patty to fix a little bit of a boo-boo we made. No, actually we did it intentionally to show you how to do this,
Yes.
right?
For some ticks and trips.
Some tips and tricks.
No, ticks and trips. So we're using regular old Type Bond glue, right?
Yeah. You can use any glue you have, and then take some of what usually you discard.
Sawdust.
This will be our sawdust from our earlier adventures.
And then mix it with a little stick here.
Is that enough, you think?
For at least one of them, yeah. I mean, Now the advantage of this glue is that it's going to dry clear, and that works better for this purpose, right? And then we will go and fill this. Like always happened on our last screw, he came out, right?
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't always happen, let's be fair. Sometimes.
If it's gonna happen, it's the last one.
It's the
right?
last one.
Yeah.
So that's how you make homemade glue. You wait until it dries, and then you just a light sanding, oh no,
I know your favorite.
and it will just disappear like it was never there.
Okay, so we have our base all put together, and here is the top. It's all obviously upside down. We're going to use our 1x3s to do the proper spacing here. More big dogs outside.
We have to explain what big dogs are. People are not crazy like us.
Let me see if I can get them.
No.
You can just see it going by over there behind the... There they are. Big dogs. We call them big
Why are you
dogs.
giving the finger to our audience?
I'm just trying to point them out. There they are. Big dogs. that drive our dogs crazy.
So the dogs think like the deer are big dogs and bark at
Right,
them to come
right.
play. Okay.
But the deer,
This is my yard.
yeah, but the deer want nothing to do with them. Let's see. As we stated, we used our 1x3s to help us put this in place. So it's the 1.5 on every corner. We've got all 4 corners set now. And what are we doing next?
Well, this is an optional step. We decided we wanted to be attached, but also removable in case this breaks for some reason, right?
Okay.
So we're going to epoxy some pieces of wood on each side. So we're going to put 4. Actually, even 2 will be plenty, but
The 4 will hold it into place. And
Right.
so the idea is we're going to cut 4 equal pieces of this. There's going to be 1 here, 1 there, 1 there, 1 there, and they'll just be snug up against it. And then those will be epoxied into place. There will be a screw from the inside to hold that block to the table base. And that way you can take the screw out if you ever need to take the base off and replace the top.
yep,
Right?
guys, we made 4 little blocks, and I put one here on my drill, in my press, because no, it's not a press.
Clamp, vise,
It's a vise.
clamp, vise thing.
Because we do not want to split it. It is not visible, but we much rather not split it as
Right.
we insert the screws.
So I've got in the clamp to drill a pilot hole so that we can not split.
Okay, number 2.
I need to do that part.
Yeah, and the higher it is, the easier it is so as to make the attachment, right? Oh, this is hard. Wow, I'm impressed.
Okay.
This is hard wood.
So we're doing that for all 4.
So we are starting our screws. That will make it just easier, right?
Yep. So essentially just to the edge of that.
That's the tip.
So they're there and they're ready to go.
Backwards.
We're ready to go once we get them epoxied to the table, and then we can attach it very easily to the base.
Easily, we haven't done it.
So we bought some adhesive, not sponsored, we purchased. There we go. Yep. We're gonna put that on the bottom of that piece. Fairly liberal.
Here.
And now we're gonna put it as close to center as we can.
Not critical.
For us, it's critical. For some people, probably not. And this particular adhesive, you have about 15 minutes to play with it before you can't move it again. So try to be as quick as you can
So
in
we'll
getting
give it
them in
15
place.
minutes and
Yeah,
then we're going to screw it.
we're gonna screw it.
Well, it's not attached to the smart ass.
Don't lift it.
Looks like you might put a little too much there.
There's a paper towel over there.
Okay. Never too much than too little.
It's gonna stay put. So we're gonna do all 4 of those. You can see that we've got 2 in place, and then we'll come back and finish putting those screws in so that those blocks are attached to the base.
Okay. So what I'm doing is I'm making sure that nothing will move. That's why I'm using you need to go a little more with the clamp.
We heard from our 15-minute alarm we are running a little bit late with our adhesive, so I wanted to finish the process and have it attached to the base before 15 minutes are over, but we did not achieve that. We should still be okay as long as we wait for the full cure of the substance.
Now this cannot be moved now, but it will not fully cure for some time, right? Like, what did we say? 24 hours, 5 hours, or what? I don't know.
24 hours.
But in essence, the build is done. So let's all together move it over so we can do it. Well, friends, this is our finished project. And as you can see, it's a nice, stylish. What style would you call this? Modern? Industrial?
No, it's not modern. It would be
Industrial?
rustic. It's pretty rustic.
All right. So we hope you did enjoy this episode, and if you did, we'll appreciate a thumbs up. If you didn't, press the other button twice. Share, like, subscribe. Let us know what else you might want to watch in future episodes of the Urban Hostanic channel with Professor DIY. From Professor DIY, Mrs. DIY, and Alpida, stay safe, friends.